Labor Talks, recorded at Chippewa Valley Community Television in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Hello and welcome to Labor Talks. Today's special guest is Jeremy Gragert. Okay. Yeah. Jeremy currently serves as the treasurer of the Alliance for Strong Communities. Welcome to Labor Talks.
I appreciate it, Laurie.
We want to let our audience know a little bit about you and what the Alliance stands for. So could you tell us a little bit about you, Jeremy?
Sure. I grew up in Stillwater, Minnesota. Moved to Eau Claire in 2000 for college at UW Eau Claire. Ended up getting involved in the community in many different ways and different civic activities. And in 2008, the Alliance for Strong Communities started, but I was away in graduate school. But when I came back, it was kind of up and running. So back in 2012, after working at UW Stout for a while, I joined the Alliance for Strong Communities as a treasurer. At first, I had gotten on to a nonprofit board in the community called the Chippewa Valley Transit Alliance, which ended up becoming a member of the Alliance for Strong Communities, which is how I ended up representing the Chippewa Valley Transit Alliance on the Alliance for Strong Communities, because the Alliance for Strong Communities is made up of nonprofit organizations, government organizations, labor organizations, education groups, and it's meant to represent a wide variety of perspectives. And the Chippewa Valley Transit Alliance, which is focused on public transit, bicycling, pedestrian issues, is just part of that community of organizations. So I've been involved in a lot of transportation advocacy over the years. I work for the Wisconsin Bicycle Federation, so I'm kind of involved in a lot of different things with transportation, and that's a big part of the Alliance for Strong Communities, because the Alliance is about public structures, and roads and bridges and public transit is a big aspect of that.
What's the goal for the Alliance?
The Alliance for Strong Communities is basically focused on providing a place for a variety of organizations and as diverse as possible to talk about public structures, and what those are essentially are educational institutions, or the idea of public education in general. So it could be physical structures like buildings, like schools and parks and roads, or it can be the idea that we have a just society, or we address poverty, or we educate our citizens and make sure that people have a leg up in society. And we really, so we have labor organizations on our as part of the Alliance for Strong Communities. There are educators. There are, like, the city of Altoona, the city of Eau Claire, the Eau Claire County. Since it is kind of an Eau Claire area focused organization, the local governments are a big part of that. There's also some more private sector areas, like the Realtors Association, community television, where we are having this discussion, and they are a critical part of public structures in many ways, in that they support public dialogue, even though it's a private nonprofit organization.
They give us a lot more voice than we get anyplace else.
Yeah, and so it's just, I'm really happy to be here. And
Good. What issues is the Alliance working on right now?
Well, there's obviously, as I described, kind of a breadth of issues, or different types of aspects of public structures. There's big issues with education right now, of course. There's issues with the infrastructure of our roads and our, even our ports and airports and things like that. There's a lot of issues of basic democracy as well, and basic civic participation that is sometimes in the state legislature not given a priority. So we like to be able to provide venues to talk about some of the most complicated issues like climate change and like funding for rural schools or money in politics. And then we dig down as local as we can get and host public forums for elections that are coming up. And sometimes we really try to focus on the aspects of the elections that maybe aren't getting the most attention in the media at the moment. So it might be an obscure referendum that's on the ballot that nobody even knew was going to be on there.
And educate people on what it is.
Yeah, so it's this general idea of public awareness and civic engagement.
And you said you were mostly involved with the transit as you were way into. Were you involved at all with the train? The possibility of having the train from Eau Claire to the cities?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, when the governor was first elected and one of his campaign planks was against taking federal money for passenger trains. Personally, I didn't think that was a good way forward. And there was not really, he wasn't exactly listening to what a lot of people were saying. And I'm on this local Sierra Club board, and we held a protest in downtown Eau Claire. 100 people almost showed up to say, accept the money. We need good transportation
we need the jobs
for everybody.
And we need the transportation. I live along the 94 corridor.
Yeah.
And I would be one of those people who would be taking the train to come to town.
Yeah.
And my husband would be taking it to go the other way. Mm-hmm. And I've traveled extensively through Europe, and it's amazing how much better their transportation is than ours. They're so far ahead of us in other countries than we are.
Yeah, and part of it I think is transportation for everybody is kind of, the Alliance for Strong Communities doesn't necessarily have positions on issues, these specific issues like high-speed rail or something like that. But we have this idea that we should have a public dialogue about it. We should figure out how transportation in general can help the most number of people in our state, and also contribute to strengthening local communities like Eau Claire and like Hammond or there's a lot of, I grew up in the Twin Cities, so being connected to other places outside of the area is important to me, and it's important to young people in general as well as a trend. So we're trying to be responsive to what the trends are too.
If we want those younger people to move here, no matter where they work between here and the cities. A lot of those villages over there are bedroom communities. They work in the cities. It would be a lot better, I think, to give them the options, like you said, so that everybody has transportation.
Yeah, and the Chippewa Valley Transit Alliance is really very multimodal in focus. So we focus on buses a lot, but we also focus on biking and walking and intercity buses and passenger trains. And luckily there's an organization, the West Central Wisconsin Rail Coalition, which should maybe be a good guest at some point. They have they're organizing along the corridor from here to the Twin Cities to bring passenger rail back, maybe through a public-private partnership. And so we're certainly in favor of where the public institutions and private institutions can work together.
And recently, as you said, the Alliance hosted a presentation called Rebuilding America's Infrastructure and Economy. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that seminar?
Yeah, we had Martin Hansen, who used to work for Ayers Associates, come, and the American Society of Civil Engineers has an infrastructure report card that they issue, I believe, every year that looks at every state, but also the national picture in terms of where we're at with kind of the physical infrastructure and the health of that infrastructure. So that includes roads, and includes bridges, and includes public transit, includes dams, includes airports and ports, includes all sorts of, includes the energy infrastructure we have, which is really becoming quite antiquated when we consider how far we need to go with renewable energy in this country. So we're given a D+ as a country in this report, in this infrastructure report. So that's what he came to speak about, is give us an overview of that report and answer questions. And we always like to have, we can get a good variety of people at those talks, because we have over a dozen organizations in the Alliance for Strong Communities that can help get the word out. And we're getting better at working with the local media so that they can help bring that message further, and obviously having community television on board where they can film our events is huge.
And I know you had a couple different times that this was aired, right? Seminar.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in Wisconsin complain about the two seasons we have, the winter and the road construction season. But I'm on the road a lot across the whole state. And I know that there's a lot of bridges and overpasses that were considered fracture critical. And that's why they were finally starting to work on them. Then the 35W bridge in Minnesota, I think, really woke people up to how bad the infrastructure as far as our highways and bridges are.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it didn't really wake up the state legislature in Wisconsin. We probably the biggest breakdown in actual real dialogue and real tough decision making in our state legislature this last year. Like, maybe schools is also probably a big one, right? But one of the biggest ones was our transportation budget. And that's it. I don't even know where to begin on that, but essentially we need to raise the kind of revenue we need to pay for our infrastructure, but we also need to do it in a way that's fair for the taxpayer, and that really looks at where our innovation needs to focus on, like where new technology may be able to actually track the number of miles people drive and have there's different ways to essentially tax for transportation, like by actually having people pay per mile or things like that, versus the gas tax becoming a lot more antiquated of a way to do it.
More states want to go the tollway route, because then they figure that can help raise the money for the construction and on the roads. But I know other people that hate the toll systems.
Yeah, and the way we have it right now, a lot of the local roads are being paid for with property tax money, or there's so people think that the gas tax is paying for their roads, but it's not coming anywhere close.
And there are a lot of roads out there, especially, when you look at the number of roads here in Wisconsin even that are not even blacktopped.
Yeah.
And it adds to the aging of the vehicles, and so you're right. We've got to do some major work on the construction of our infrastructure. I know in the past the Alliance has also been active in educating the public as to how bad the new budget is to our schools. What do you see as a way forward for our schools to maneuver around the budget, or to figure a way to make up for what we've lost in the budget?
Well, a big part of it is just being educated on what that budget means for local communities, and what our individual local schools needs are, whether it be a rural or urban school, and there can be quite a difference there in terms of their support from the state. I think that one of our best programs that we had last year, or actually it was earlier this year, we had Mandy Wright, who was a former Democrat in the Assembly, and then we had Dale Schultz, who was a former Republican in the state Senate, come to Eau Claire to give an overview of where we're at with education funding, and a bit of the history, too, in terms of how we got down this road where things are so screwed up. And there was a very bipartisan kind of discussion, and that's kind of the point all along with our organization, is to constantly get people together that maybe wouldn't normally be sitting down together and having these discussions and being educated together about each other's perspectives, but also simply the facts on the ground, which sometimes are almost like the hardest thing to
like you said, getting them to talk. We know that our government isn't working right now because we won't do what you want because you're on that side of the fence.
Yeah.
We have to have a way for them to talk.
Yeah, and with the way things are in the legislature, all being one party with the governor, they don't feel like they have to talk
Or listen.
But in our local communities, we, and with our families, our coworkers, we actually have to talk to each other. Being able to have those venues for that discussion is a very important thing. I mean, but in terms of what schools can do, unfortunately, the hardest, the only real major option that's available, other than really the civic engagement side of things, where you just get more and more people involved in public policy and with local elections and state politics, so that you maybe change state politics, is to really have a ton of referendums. And I believe that the Eau Claire Area School District is looking at not only doing, they've done some facilities focused referendums where they can build, they can renovate a few schools and do some energy efficiency projects, which will save money in the long run, which are great. But they're actually looking at doing a referendum that is about operations, that is just basic funding for
keeping the buildings going.
Yeah, well, and keeping teachers in the classroom, and like being able to actually retain good teachers, and being able to pay them and provide them,
a living wage.
Yeah, a living wage, which is critically important to our schools, and just the idea of bringing our class sizes in line with an environment where students can actually learn. So,
as an elected official, because I'm on the village board where I live, I know how hard it is for small communities to have enough money to get everything done. With the shared revenues staying flat or reducing, and you can't raise taxes in your areas. That's restricted too, on what you can do to try to, like the schools, to try to find a way around that budget. Do you have any advice for small communities to help them grow?
Well, I think a big part of what we do, one of the reasons I'm involved is in a lot of issues today, is I think that environmental issues and energy issues are kind of actually a way to really grow our economy and kind of move and transition toward a more sustainable future, and that includes more sustainable budgets. I think with transportation, investing in public transportation and roads that are more accommodating to bicyclists and pedestrians, which ultimately cost less because you don't have to keep building bigger highways and stuff, is one way that communities can save money, but also provide better services for everybody in the community. I think that we have to face the reality that our economy in Wisconsin is not doing particularly well, partly because of public policy decisions that have been made that are not in line with what helps everybody in the economy, but rather are benefiting fewer people at the top. So we have to recognize that fact that people are not super comfortable with talking about tax increases. So we need to think about how we can spend money more smartly, and also make the tax structure more fair for people, so that we still can raise the kind of money we need, but we also are able to have everybody be supported.
Would the Alliance be interested in doing like research on grant programs that might be available for small communities or the schools as another way for them to raise money? I mean, they aren't comfortable writing for a grant, or even knowing where to go to research them sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, part of what we can do in that regard, and we do meet every month. Our full our full steering. Well, we have different committees and stuff too, but where we have an executive committee and stuff. But we're able to put on programs that share across different municipalities, across city and county and school district, and across other private nonprofits in the business community about things that are available. So we have this network as an organization that is pretty it's pretty broad, that allows us to, when we see a grant or something like that, we can share that more easily than a lot of organizations.
Because I know as a village trustee, that's something that I would be interested in. I mean,
Yeah.
I know we've got a couple of employees in our area that are really good with looking for grants and are comfortable. They've been doing it, so they're comfortable looking at those things. Focus on energy, the different types of programs like that can help an area. You get rid of all the, the bad lights, go to LED lights, and different ways for them to save money so that they can then turn around and put back into a different program.
Yeah, and one of my roommates was working for Focus on Energy and going into people's homes and doing energy efficiency upgrades, and it's one of those things where, and that is a program that's funded through the state and via, semi-private utility companies and that are required to contribute toward it, and those are, those are the types of public policy choices that we've made in the past that hopefully don't go away, but have in some ways been degraded recently. There probably still are quite a few grants available compared to before. It's just, how do we build the skills in every part of our state to be able to know about them and be able. Public libraries are a big public structure that provide grant support, and in almost every little community has a library.
Well, and just knowing the changes. We had a facade grant program in Wisconsin, and now that's been taken over by the federal program, so everything's been put on hold.
Yeah. A
lot of people don't know where to go to find those changes until it affects them personally or their business personally, and then it's harmful.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be, I think our organization could shift its, some of its priorities depending on where the needs are, in terms of and maybe one of them is really this awareness about more funding options. I think one of the best organizations for that is the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. They really put a good list of grants together. If you're not familiar with them, and they actually have their office right on the same floor of this building.
And then it would be nice if, in a small community, if they decided they wanted to build an alliance like we have here in Eau Claire, for them to pick the brains, for instance, of your steering committee so that they can develop one as well. It'll help those small communities to grow. Yeah,
I think it's a model that works on that could work on every size of community, because every community has a county aspect of government, it has city, it has school district, and that's a big part of the core. And then there's labor organizations, there's members of the faith community. We have Jonah involved with our organization.
Some of these small communities, that's pretty much all that's there sometimes is the churches.
The schools and the churches and the faith community are really big parts of who also needs to step up more too. Everybody needs to step up to build these conversations and really lead to change.
But I think if we could build those alliances like that in other communities across our area, it would make a very beneficial for those areas.
Yeah.
The Alliance has also been very active in the past in hosting candidate forums. We talked about that. Will they be doing that again for the spring election, do you see?
We sometimes we kind of look and see where the what exactly is going on with, where there's contested races, where there's referendums or referenda that have been proposed or that have actually been approved. So we have to look at the landscape of that first before we decide. And it's always a big partnership in terms, we're not the only one putting on whatever forum exists. It's usually, community television, and sometimes it's the Leader Telegram that partners with us. Sometimes it's the Chamber of Commerce. So although that hasn't happened as recently, I think that the school district is likely going to propose a referendum, and I think that for Eau Claire Area School District, and I think that is going to be one of those opportunities where you can't have enough conversation and education around it. So, and there's maybe a really specific aspect of it that we could go after. Maybe there's a really competitive city council race for at-large this year. Or maybe it's not looking competitive at all, so there's no attention going to it, but we should still have the conversation about what direction our city should go. and we need to always think about, and every organization in our community, whether that be the Lions Club or whatever, needs to think about, well, how can we engage our members more in civic life?
Get them to the polls,
yeah,
so that they know they're involved in their own community in all the issues. What do you see as the way forward for the community?
In general?
Yeah, in general.
I mean, I think we really need to look at some of those very difficult questions, and I think one of the things that's going on right now is actually the United Nations is a big global issue, the issue of global climate change, and we can think that it's something that can be discussed in Paris, and for 2 weeks, and then we're done with it or something, and maybe we have to, maybe the president can handle that or something, but that's really something that, from my perspective, and it's not necessarily something that is going to be everyone's priority, right? But from my perspective, I think those big, complicated global issues that have a local relevance, that have a local responsibility to be a part of a solution, are really kind of an example. That's an example of something that the Alliance for Strong Communities can provide a forum for a discussion that is maybe around a controversial issue, somehow controversial, even though the science is settled on that one. If it's, but maybe we can still have we can bring people together to have a conversation where some people don't believe that the science is settled, and for our, but I think that everyone recognizes there needs to be some sort of public policy response to climate change, whether they think it's a human-caused or not, or whatever. So,
and like you said, local, not just international.
Yeah, and what is the city response? What is the school district doing? What is it doing for education around that? What is it doing for its own facilities? We've hardly seen much from the school district about what they're going to do on energy efficiency, but then you look at other schools that are using renewable energy, and our school district is not. So that's not really a poke at the school district here, but that's just an example of where we need to have that conversation where we kind of we push each other to do better.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks, Jeremy. That's today's program, and my thanks to our viewing audience and to you, because obviously you helped make today's program possible. My thanks also to the folks that are working behind our cameras, who not only make this show possible, but give us a voice, an outlet. And as a final note, Labor Talks is on channel 993 twice weekly. You can also use your favorite search engine with keywords Labor Talks and CVCT and find us on YouTube. Thanks for coming and joining us today.
Thank you.
Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cvctv.org.